Okay, in this last video for section 3.4, I'm going to introduce you to something that's called the discriminant of a quadratic equation. Now, this was something that you should have been introduced to in Algebra 1, but may need some refreshing. So that's what this example is going to be for, is to refresh you on what the discriminant is and then go over what it tells us about a quadratic equation. So from the last two videos, you saw that quadratic equations can either have two real solutions, one real solution, or zero real solutions, and instead two imaginary solutions. So those are the three different scenarios that you can have. Again, two real, one real, or zero real, which is two imaginary solutions. So the discriminant can actually tell us some information about the number of solutions a quadratic equation has and the types of solutions. So what are those, real or imaginary? Now, the discriminant is just part of the quadratic equation. So if we look at our quadratic formula right here, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant is just the radical portion of it. So the discriminant, and it's not even including the radical, the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. It's the portion that's underneath the radical. Okay? This part right here, b squared minus 4ac, is what we call the discriminant. So in the problem, when you see find the discriminant, that means that you're just calculating this part of the quadratic formula. So you still need to get your a, b, and c values from your equation, but instead of plugging them in and solving the entire formula, you're just solving this small part, b squared minus 4ac. Okay, now let's go look back at our problem. So depending on what value you get for your discriminant, that's gonna determine what it's going to describe the number and types of solutions. So each of these examples is going to show us a different scenario. So let's first look at x squared minus 6x plus 10. So here we've got a is 1, b is negative 6, and c is 10. So if we go ahead and we got our equation in standard form, the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. So when we work that out, we get 36 minus 40. So we get negative 4. Now, here are the solutions, okay? 3 plus I, 3 plus or minus I. Those are the solutions to this first one, okay? Before I tell you what the discriminant exactly tells you, I want to show you the results of these three scenarios so you can see the values of the discriminant and how it relates to the solutions. So our second problem, we've got a is 1, b is negative 6, and c is 9. So when we have our discriminant, we get 36 minus 36. We get a discriminant of 0. And in this case, we have one real solution, which is 3. Again, if you plug these values in the quadratic formula, you'll determine this. And let's look at our last. Okay, our last one, we have a is 1, b is negative 6, and c is 8. When we plug those values in, we get 36 minus 32, so we get a discriminant of 4. In this example, we have two real solutions, 2 and 4. Okay, so here is what the discriminant tells you. You want to make sure you're writing this down right now. So the first thing, what you want to look at with your discriminant is the sign. You want to look to see if your discriminant is positive, negative, or if it's equal to 0. Those are the three different scenarios. Okay? It doesn't matter how big of a positive number or how big of a negative number. All we care about is the discriminant positive, negative, or equal to 0. If your discriminant's positive, then you are going to have two real solutions for your quadratic equation. Okay? A positive discriminant means two real solutions. A negative discriminant means zero real equations, but instead two imaginary solutions. Okay? So a negative discriminant means that your solutions are going to be imaginary. You're going to have two imaginary solutions. And the third case, if your discriminant is equal to 0, you are going to have one real solution. Okay? One real solution means your discriminant was 0. Those are the three different scenarios. So all you're looking at with your discriminant is whether it's positive, negative, or equal to 0. And depending on what it is, it's going to tell you the number of solutions and whether they're real or imaginary. So again, one more time, write this down if you haven't yet. A positive discriminant means you have two real solutions. A negative discriminant means two imaginary and 0 real solutions. And a discriminant equal to 0 means you have one real solution. Okay? Again, the value doesn't matter if it could be negative 4,000 or negative 1. Both of those will have two imaginary solutions. If your discriminant's 4 or 400 million, you're still going to have two real solutions. All right, what I want you guys to do is go ahead and look at these problems right here. I'm going to ask you some questions first with these. So you're going to see some text boxes that come up right now that ask you some questions about each of these problems. So you're going to be calculating the discriminants with some of these. So go ahead and follow the directions on the text boxes that pop up in just a second, and go ahead and answer the questions accordingly.